All right. I've started a live stream to talk about the vice presidential debate of 2020. And I've got your comments for anybody who shows up live. I've got those to look at and read as I'm sharing my response. I'll be here for about an hour. Um, and before anyone gets invested and has to like wait till the end, I'll just say that I have reasons that I believe that Kamala Harris won the debate. I was biased anyway for her, but also there were two moments I feel like in the middle of this that were key to that opinion that I formed. And also, I think either way, it was leagues better than the presidential debate just a week earlier. There's so much more to talk about that I was like, I don't even want to like run up the memory on my camera. I'm just going to turn on a live stream and talk about as long as the debate was. I'm just going to talk about the debate. So those are my opinions that you don't have to like wade through the whole video to hear. So if that was all you were here for, that's there it is. Other than that, uh, here we go. One concurrent viewer so far because I am not as popular of a YouTuber as I once was, and I never really was. So there's that. Um, so the moderator of this debate was Susan Page from USA Today, and I thought did a good job considering that we're kind of in a post decorum debate world where the debate rules don't matter anymore, and both candidates know that all they have to do is just keep talking for a little bit and they can squeeze in a few extra words, and so that's what they try to do with each question. They try to not give more time to the other person by eking out just a few more seconds because camera time seems to be as important as control of the ball in football, you know, possession time of the camera. Um, so with that, I think that Susan Page did a little bit better at reining things in than Chris Wallace did a week ago with the president. That was a shit show. But given that people are still kind of sore from that shit show, as far as people interrupting each other, I feel like Pence lost a couple of cool points with some viewers because of him doing that just a few times because it reminds people of Trump, and that's bad. You know, um, the first topic was the coronavirus, and Susan Page asked, "What would a Biden administration do that Trump wouldn't?" And Harris, her response was just like a rundown of facts as Pence was shaking his head, and she's like contact tracing, testing, free care for all, um, and you know, I got the feeling that Pence wants us to think that they're already doing all these things, but almost immediately as the outbreak started in the U.S., it got too big to do contact tracing with. So to say that they've been doing contact tracing, no, they haven't. Um, it's been out of hand since March. we need the numbers to get so low that you can begin contact tracing to snuff it out at the end. It would make no sense to do contact tracing right now or put any sort of effort into that rather than other things you could put your effort towards because it's gotten that bad. That's what I was feeling watching this. Then Susan Page asked, "Why is the U.S. death toll higher than any other country?" And Pence was like, "Well, Trump suspended travel from China, and Biden called that xenophobic, and I believe that saved lives and bought us time." Right? Not answering the question, and strange that like later on he's going to in the debate, say, "You're not answering my question. You're not answering my question." Well, he's dodging questions. He didn't give us a reason why the U.S. death toll is much higher than any other country. He didn't state any reason. Um, and given who Trump is, I understand that a few politicians, their uh, their knee jerk reaction to Trump wanting to ban travel from a place is to call it xenophobic. They're used to him being a racist, so I don't blame them for calling any move he does like that racism. You know, it's like the boy who cried wolf. He did so many other racist things. The first thing he did was a Muslim ban, for travel. Um, that was his first presidential act. So it was like, well, of course it's going to be xenophobic. I'll say that it was only half the right thing to do because he should have done travel bans to all of the European countries that ended up having outbreaks right after that, sooner than happened. And why didn't we do that? Oh, probably because they're white. Um, TP Seeker says when 34 people in the White House test positive for COVID, that should show exactly how this administration planned and carried out their COVID plans. Yeah, reminds me of that Sweden plan. Let's all just get it. Um, Harris said that clearly Trump's plans hadn't worked. She harped on 210,000 dead. She said that multiple times in the debate. Uh, and then Pence says, "Well, when you say what has been done hasn't worked, you do a disservice to everyone who's been working hard, like the first responders and the hospital people and all that, and people working hard to create ventilators. And Trump did everything Fauci said, and the American people deserve credit for what they've done." So he's trying to turn her into the bad guy for their failures, and it's like, no, she's not saying that. He's putting words in her mouth, and I think people can see that. Most people, anyway. Uh, Susan Page then turns to Vice President Pence and asks him a question that right immediately told me that maybe Susan Page is well, her questions lean more towards favoring the challenger. Her question was, "You were at a super spreader event. How do you expect people to social distance when you don't?" Right? And so Pence's answer to that was, "Trump and I have confidence and trust in the American people and their ability to take the information and do well with it. Biden and Harris are more about controlling people with lockdowns, you know, and they're trying to paint Biden and Harris as being more authoritarian and socialist, and so them not being socialist means and not being authoritarian means, oh, people are smart enough to do it on their own. Well, obviously not. We have the highest uh, death toll of any country, you know. Um, TP Seeker says to me, Page did seem to side with Harris, which I'm surprised Fox didn't jump all over for being biased. Um, yeah, as far as moderators go, I think Chris Wallace was a little bit better at seeming unbiased, and still, even like coming from Fox News, I felt like Chris Wallace was biased towards Biden. And now this week, Page really, just by the content of her questions, she seemed uh, really on Harris's side. You know, her questions were biting for Pence. Um, Harris's response to Pence was that lying to the American people is not respecting them because they lied about lots of things. They knew how dangerous it was, and they kept that to themselves. Didn't put that out, and then their public face was, "Oh, we'll have this under control." They put out orders saying, "Hey, tell everybody that they don't need a mask, so that we can buy them all up for our hospitals." And then later, they order government officials to say, "Oh yeah, masks are actually the right thing." So yeah, that's not how you respect people's ability to make decisions on their own. You know, telling them all the facts that you have when you have them is the way to do that. So I get her point. Uh, Susan Page said if Trump uh, develops a vaccine, will you take it? And Senator Harris said, if health officials tell me to take it, I'll be first in line. But if Trump tells me to take it, I won't take it. And Pence, when he was given the opportunity to answer his next question, went back to that. He said, "You're undermining uh, of confidence in the vaccine is unacceptable." Uh, and I would have chimed back with as her being like, I don't have a lack of confidence in vaccines. I have a lack of confidence in my president because he lies. You know, but she never got the chance to say that. He also said Biden's uh, handling of the swine flu in 2009 was a real disaster, where they did everything possible wrong. Right. But the question that he dodged there was, um, Susan Page asked uh, Pence, "Have you had a conversation with Trump about the presidential disability issue and like mental health, and if you need to be able to take over? Um, have you had that conversation?" He dodged that question. Right later on in the show, he's telling Kamala, you didn't answer my question. You didn't. Well, he's not answering questions. You know. So then Susan Page just gave Kamala Harris the same question that Pence just dodged, and said, "Have you talked with Biden about presidential disability?" And Harris was like, "Well, Joe and I were raised in a similar way and share values. And Joe picked me for yada 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 reasons that made her qualified." Um, uh, Pence was given another opportunity to answer the question and respond, and he said, "Well, the care that the president got was exceptional, and I was extremely grateful for the outpouring of support." And yeah, he still kind of dodged the question. um, Page then asked, "Do voters have a right to know about the president's health?" And Harris was like, "Well, yeah, and they should also be transparent about everything, like taxes," which I felt like, yeah, she kind of turned it into the whole tax thing, which it's good to bring up, but uh, health was the issue. So she was the one who kind of twisted. She answered the question, but she immediately pivoted and also let's just slam this into my answer. and just yeah, it was awkward. It was an awkward pivot. Um, but the burn of his tax records being available, just in the last 2 weeks. That's you know, it's just reminding people of that Achilles heel that Trump has. TP Seeker says that's right. Someone did bring up the POTUS disability for him being rushed to Walter Reed for a physical. Yeah. Pence's response was that Trump has paid millions in taxes, which is not what the records that the New York Times have say. But they're looking at personal income taxes, not all the taxes that he paid that created deductions elsewhere, and basically his business losses have offset so much in taxes that he's not paying taxes many years. Um, Pence, he's able to say that Trump has paid millions in taxes because nobody has all the records, you know. But I feel like the truth is probably going to come out in full one day. It's going to get leaked, and we're going to like history will tell us whether Pence was lying right there. Um, he said Trump has released stacks of financial disclosures, which would tell us where his loyalties lie as far as his financial uh, dual relationships. People being citizens and his you know business relations. Uh, TP Seekerson seems to think that it's fishy. The story on taxes came out exactly when they did. Uh, I think it's fishy that Trump got coronavirus exactly when he did. The October surprise moment is about right now because there's so many mail-in ballots happening. All the news that happens right around now. It's also fishy when they talk about the military being bad-mouthed by Trump around the time that absentee ballots would have reached soldiers in the Middle East and in Afghanistan because their ballots were going to get to them earlier than everybody else. They have the real absentee ballots, not just the ones that states that do like mail ballots do. So those type of absentee ballots uh, primarily go to military members serving overseas. All those stories about Trump bad mouthing service members resurfacing all over again, it was a tactical thing, and it was to me it looked like it was collusion from the media and the Democratic Party both harping on it at the same time. Good strategy though, because they're reaching voters when they're making their decisions. Um, anyways, uh, Page next wanted to talk about the jobs crisis. Uh, she talked about the unemployment rate, discouraged workers, 11 million jobs lost, minorities are most affected. And then she said, would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And at this point, I really, really felt like the moderator was on Harris's side. The questions just seemed like they were really pointed at Pence as far as trying to, you know, cinch this for Harris. Um, Harris said Biden is more for the workers, Trump is for the rich, yada yada. His tax bill benefited the rich and grew the deficit. Joe will invest in America with infrastructure and education. She said something about like across the board, we're all going to have like $10,000 less in student debt, which for me would benefit me. So I'm like, what was that? You know, um, you're not supposed to buy people's votes though, and that's a tricky line that they're skirting there with the benefits of one president being that my debt would be reduced by $10,000. Hmm. That's almost like sending out relief checks to the American people with your name on them for $1,200. Hmm. People trying to use the government to buy votes left and right. Anyways, Page asked, should Americans be braced for a recovery that will last more than 2 years? And Pence, uh, he kind of dodged it at first. He said Biden, as VP, tried to bail their way to a recovery and regulate to recovery during his administration. And on day one, Biden is going to raise your taxes. And then he said, "We unleashed American energy, paycheck protection," and just it turned into a stump speech. Uh, he was like, "They want the Green New Deal. If Trump wins, 2021 will be great." And that was like the only part of it that actually answered the question. That was like the last sentence. Um, so I think that was actually good performance on his part. That he said everything he wanted to do in that response, and then answered the question. So that one bit he got points on my scorecard. Then Harris tries to answer the question and gets interrupted by Pence, and the moderator has to step in. And then Harris says Biden won't raise your taxes if you make less than 400K. Side note: Biden actually tweeted that today too, to re-emphasize that. She said Joe Biden's policies were responsible for Trump's success because they had an echoing effect into his administration. And then she said Biden and Obama got us the Affordable Care Act, and she kept saying that Pence is trying to take that away. Pence is coming for you, So those were her side of it. Um, Pence said Trump will protect pre-existing conditions, and Biden will end fracking. And at this point, I was actually uncertain of Biden's actual stance on fossil fuels because he's been all over the place. So is Kamala Harris. They've said that they want to have less fossil fuels, and they're like, no, we're not going to ban fracking. I feel like the renewable energy that they're wanting America to invest in will intrinsically affect fracking in that it will reduce demand for it. But what they're stating publicly now is that they don't want to put bans on it or regulations. But by going for renewable energy projects on the scale that they want to, they're going to make fossil fuels obsolete. So that it's not like they have to ban it or regulate it away. They're just going to make it so that the infrastructure doesn't use it. They're going to probably do like a cash for clunkers and get everyone to drive electric cars. TP Seeker said Trump is still fighting the ACA in courts. Yes. And he's about to appoint another Supreme Court justice that will help him out in that respect. Page changed the topic to climate change, and it was hard for her to cut them off so that she could just move the show along. She asked Pence, "Do you believe in man-made climate change?" And then Pence tried to dodge the question, but just read between the lines of what he said. You can tell no, he doesn't. He said our air and land are cleaner than ever recorded, and I was like, right when he said that, I was like, no, they fucking aren't. California's on fire. The sky was orange. It was like an AQI of 500 in places in Portland because of all those wildfires. The air is not cleaner than it's ever been. There were days that we had the worst air quality on the entire planet, Beijing included, during these wildfires. So fuck him on that. He said so is our water, which I don't have information on. I really don't. I know that California needs more water, but I don't know how cleaner our water might be right now. And I think one of the reasons I don't know is because they reduced funding to the EPA. So why would I see any reports on that ever, ever? You know, he said that Trump just signed the Outdoors Act, and I'm like, well, he's been in office 4 years. Signing things right before the election doesn't mean that you were actually for it. It means you waited 4 years and then right at the end wanted something to say that was positive. So I give them 0 points for the Outdoors Act in this election cycle because they just did it. Um, he said that the climate is changing, but the issue is what is the cause? And we're going to listen to the science. And I'm like, oh, you mean you're going to listen to witch doctors that say that Trump should take hydroxychloroquine? Uh, you know, and just cherry pick the one scientist in the world that says what you want to believe. That was a big fucking lie on his part. The whole red herring of what's the real cause of climate change? We don't know. Well, most scientists are in agreement about that, and he's not listening to most scientists or the vast majority of them. He's only listening to the few that are right wing hacks. You know, it's possible for scientists to be political too. He also said Biden and Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord and the Green New Deal, which would crush American jobs. And he's made the point that the Green New Deal isn't that different than the Biden plan. They're trying to say, we're not for the Green New Deal, we're for the Biden plan. And he's like, well, the Biden plan isn't much different. You know, you're just putting a different label on it. So I think in that respect, Biden gets points for, bringing them back under the scrutiny of the right for their being environmentalists. And he was correct in saying that they would rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. Whether or not that would crush American jobs, uh, certain American jobs, yes, the polluting ones. Uh, us hemming and hawing on what we're going to do to make a cleaner world is stifling the kind of jobs that we could have because there's no financial incentives to them as long as we have really cheap fossil fuels. Uh, let's see. He also said that NOAA says that there's no more hurricanes than there were 100 years ago. Uh, this is a lie. They're more frequent and they're stronger. And that was a flat out lie. Like, I didn't even need to fact check it, but I did. Let's see. Page asked uh, Harris what was the stance of the Biden Harris ticket towards the Green New Deal, because it came up. And then Kamala Harris said Joe Biden will not ban fracking, which it made Pence chuckle a little bit, but there's a reason, and that's because the far left wants him to ban fracking, so he's losing support from his own base every time that they bring that up. It's a good strategy to bring up the Green New Deal and see how both of them reject it. Joe Biden, she said Joe Biden's plan will create 7 million more jobs than Trump, with part of those being green jobs. Joe sees the California wildfires and the Gulf storms, Iowa crops. Joe believes in science. Trump administration has taken the words science and climate change off of websites, which I didn't fact check, but I do know that Trump has banned certain phrasing of certain things like climate change from certain websites and just completely stripped a few EPA websites altogether of all the public knowledge that they were putting out. He's gone so far as to taking control of the coronavirus data from the CDC and running it through HHS in a way that gives him more control over the numbers that are public, to try to make the numbers look better. You know, he's all about control of information, rather than actually doing something about the problem. Uh, so I believe the claim, but I do need to go back and fact check that. Just because it's a claim, I need to see it. Um, Page said, "Do you believe that climate change is an existential threat?" She said that right to the vice president, and he said, "Once again, the climate is changing and will follow the science." And he gave a really dismissive look when he said that. He said Kamala was the first co-sponsor of the Green New Deal, and the Biden plan is essentially the same as the Green New Deal. Good points for his base, but it's actually, uh, it's doing Biden and Harris a service to make them look more liberal. As far as they're getting more votes from their own base, to make them look more progressive. Um, I wish Harris would have called him out and said, you don't pick the scientists that agree with your narrative when you're listening to the science. But that was a missed point that she could have made. 3 concurrent viewers now, and I don't even have my own view up, so I know all 3 are different than me. One of them is probably in Britain, though. Um, Harris, she said Trump lost the trade war with China, and we lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs. And we're in a manufacturing recession because of it. And Trump will have lost more jobs than any other president, and kids don't have any confidence that they'll have a job or be able to pay rent. And that's actually something that uh, I deal with that on a daily basis as a therapist, is that kids staying at home longer is a thing. And inflation of housing costs has put housing out of reach of many kids. And by kids, I mean people under 40. So, name change says watching from the state. Um, Pi says he's in Los Angeles. And TP Seeker says North Carolina. Okay. TP Seeker also says small farmers are losing their asses right now. That is true because we had a breakdown of the supply chain of food, and we don't have restaurants that waste more food. We have grocery stores that don't create as much food waste, and that food waste part of our diet was something that was worked into our economy with farmers. So without that little bit of waste that we knew we were going to have from restaurants throwing out food all the time, you know, yeah, the when it goes directly to our plates through the grocery stores, and we're cooking at home more, farmers lose out. Uh, Name change says it was actually Washington State. So all my viewers are actually in the country where this pertains to. That's great because we don't need any more fucking redcoats telling us how to fucking vote for our own fucking president. Especially the people who were Americans and then married redcoats and became redcoat traders themselves. Exile, I'm talking about you when you finally watch the replay of this video. I'm talking about you. Anyways, uh, Pence said that Joe Biden never fought that war, which was a good zinger. I thought Biden's been uh, China's puppet. In the first 3 years, we gained 200,000 jobs when Obama lost 200,000. And I noticed that Pence was talking about the first 3 years of the presidency, not the coronavirus year, because I do attribute everything that happened to the economy to their mismanagement of the coronavirus. So it's still their economy in this fourth year. It doesn't not count because coronavirus. They fucked up the response to the coronavirus. This is their economy too. They were doing good though for the first 3 years, and you can't take that away from them. That's why he wants to put everyone's eyes on the first 3 years, not so much this last one. Harris said when Joe Biden was vice president, he brought back the auto industry, and that Pence voted against it, which is interesting because she's that sort of statement is targeted towards states like Ohio and Michigan, which are states that are in play a little bit. So we'll see. I thought it was a very calculated response as far as where she was directing her interest there. Page said, "How would you describe our relationship to China?" And Pence, dodging the question, said, "Let me talk about voting records." Basically going back to the previous question and not paying attention to the moderator, which pissed off people. Sister Danger was one of them in a group chat. She was really put off by that, and that's holdover from everyone being sore from that shit show that Trump did the week before. Anyways, Biden was like, NAFTA was bad, and jobs went south of the border. Kamala was one of the 10 members of the Senate to vote against the U.S. Mexico-Canada deal that is now the law of the land and a huge win for farmers and auto workers. He said Kamala put her radical environmental views ahead of America. And again, I think he did her a favor there because on the left, that horrible primary that they had where Bernie lost, it put a lot of progressive people, feeling like they don't have any representative in this fight right now. And for him to say that she's like super progressive and point out the ways that she is and say that she had a more liberal voting record than Bernie and like saying these things in the debate, he's bringing those people back into their base. He also said, with regards to China, the botched coronavirus response and hidden stuff, that China did. He was blaming the whole thing on China, like it was their fault that we didn't have information, but we were all alive during that time. We know that we had like months of heads up before it happened because China let us know. He said we had to ban travel from them, and we will hold China accountable for the coronavirus. Yeah, and I think we should hold Pence accountable. Harris said that the Trump administration has this perspective on China that's odd. Uh, and she said that they've got a weird obsession with China and erasing Obama's legacy, which is so fucking true. And she said, well, Trump got rid of the team of experts that Obama had in place in China, and Pence was like, no, 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 with his head shaking. But it was true. The American consumer now pays more for goods because of their failed war. And I'm like, well, I don't know how much we're paying because who has the money to be out shopping for any luxury items right now? Everybody's pretty much tight walleted because who knows what's going to happen this winter, We're all kind of ants, not grasshoppers anymore. She said that Pew analysis shows that foreign leaders hold Xi Jinping in more respect than Trump, which, duh. I don't need Pew analysis to tell me that. Um, Susan Page said, "What's your definition of the role of American leadership in the future?" Uh, and then Harris said, "Joe is all about relationships. You have to keep your word. Trump's betrayed our friends and embraced dictators. Russia, Russia, Russia." And then Pence chuckled at that. Um, she said the intelligence community said Russia interfered, but Trump took Putin's word over the intelligence community, which I felt was really targeted at certain governmental bodies and their vote. She talked about NATO is suffering and the Iran nuclear deal is suffering, and Trump made America less safe, and Trump doesn't understand how to be honest. And then Pence said, well, Trump kept his word when he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which was a dog whistle to evangelical Christians, basically. He said NATO now contributes more. We've stood strong against those who would do harm against us. We took out ISIS and al-Baghdadi, and Biden was vice president when the plan was hesitated on. And this one female soldier, cue violins, um, would have been rescued if weren't for him. And like I've personally talked to her family. TP Seeker says, "Did you cover Trump not talking to Putin over the price of our soldiers?" Says, "No, I didn't get there. I haven't gotten there yet." Hi, Xenomancer. Uh, Thanks for showing up. Everything's going great. So Pence went on and he was talking about they killed Soleimani, and I was like, that was the point where, like, for a week and a half, all of my clients in the therapy sessions that I run, they all thought that we were going to war with Iran. You know, like between Australia being on fire and coronavirus, there was this like week and a half where I was like, you fuckers, you just blew up one of their leadership and now we're about to go to war. And the only thing that saved us there was the coronavirus. Because now every country has to basically look out for their own ass with this coronavirus thing. That's why we didn't have the beginning of World War III, maybe. When they killed Soleimani, that was a really risky thing to do. And Pence is like, well, America's safer now. We've dodged a lot of bullets this year. Harris said that she was sorry to Kayla's family, the soldier that was brutally raped and killed. She said of Soleimani, she said that Donald said that the troops that were involved in that attack that they just had headaches, and then he called soldiers losers. And what about what Trump said about McCain? And Trump is only in things for himself, and he never mentioned their bounties that Russians had to Russia when he talked to them. All like 6 visits, and then Pence started interrupting, and Susan Page shut that down. Um, but yeah, she was really speaking to the military voting bloc with all that stuff. There you go, TP Seeker. I mentioned it. Uh, then Susan Page wanted to talk about the SCOTUS nomination, and Pence said, "Thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that last question. Uh, Trump didn't hesitate to kill Soleimani, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris criticized the move. It's essential to America to have a president that doesn't hesitate." And I'm like, no, it's essential that we have a president that thinks about what he's doing. before he acts. Then Pence actually answered the question that was asked. He said, "We hope that Amy Coney Barrett uh, won't have the attacks on her faith like we've seen before," which is also dog whistle to evangelicals. And then he said, Harris once attacked a nominee because of their affiliation with the Knights of Columbus and their pro life views. We hope that Amy Coney Barrett will be respected and then voted in. And then Susan Page wanted to ask Harris if Roe v. Wade was overturned, what would she want California to do? And Harris said, "No, I want to respond to that thing that he just said. Uh, Biden and I won't knock anyone's faith, and Joe Biden would be the second practicing Catholic president. And, of course, he's not going to be uh, discriminatory against the Knights of Columbus. They're Catholic too." Um, then she said on ACB, she said that the winner of the election should make the nomination. Roe v. Wade should stand, and she pivoted to the Affordable Care Act is also at stake here. So, yeah. TP Seeker says, "Ah, hell, White House doc just cleared Trump to be able to attend events this weekend." Of course it did. Of course he doesn't have to, practice social distancing guidelines like every other fucking person. Did you see the RNC? Thousands of people on the White House lawn, not with masks, not social distancing. Anyways, Harris was saying that if the ACA is overturned by the Supreme Court, then pre-existing conditions won't be covered. And then Pence was shaking his head no. And both Pence and Trump have said repeatedly that they're going to have pre-existing conditions covered under whatever plan they make. Then and Harris just keeps on, and Biden just keep on saying no. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of those protections. And so Susan Page, knowing this, said, "How would President Trump protect pre-existing conditions?" And Pence said, "Well, I'm proud to serve under an unapologetically pro-life Trump. I'm pro-life. Biden and Harris are pro-abortion in the worst ways. Harris, will your party pack the court if Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed?" Which was a pivot and a dodge to the question. He completely didn't answer like how they were going to fund covering pre-existing conditions. But then he tries to throw the question onto Harris. Are you guys going to like change the rules and make it so there's more justices on the court if we get our way? Are you just going to change the rules so you get your way when you're in power? And Harris said her little school lesson. In 1864, Abe Lincoln, Honest Abe's, decided it wouldn't be right to nominate with 27 days left till the election. And yeah, she kind of she addressed the Amy Coney Barrett situation, but she didn't answer Pence's question directly, and so he reiterated it. And then he answered it for her and said, "Yes, they will pack the courts," which he's doing her a favor by answering the question for her. He's trying to rile up his own base, but she didn't even have to answer. She just had to smirk. And then Harrison packing the court. Trump nominated 50 people to the Court of Appeals, and none of them were black, which that's how she absolutely bodied Biden in the primaries, where I thought Biden was out of it. It was actually Harris bringing up racism towards Biden. So I was like, wow. She just used that race card to chop his head off. Pence said, she still won't answer my question. Maybe Biden will next week. Um, and so he was doing her a favor with that. He loses points in my view for that. Uh, Susan Page changed the topic to justice, specifically for Breonna Taylor, and asked it was justice done, and Harris said no. She said that she talked to Breonna's family and her life was taken unjustifiably. Then she pivoted to George Floyd because that was the bigger protest. And she said that she was part of those peaceful protests. She said those words intentionally. I know it just to set off Pence. She said, Joe and I have said on this subject, we need to reform police, no chokeholds, no private prisons, no cash bail, pot conviction pardoned. The whole no private prisons part, she just lost a couple votes. I can tell you. Um, Probably not votes that they would have had anyway, but there are some police unions that also have jailers in them that are probably like, ooh, damn, if we lose the private prisons, that's a lot of union members we're about to lose. So, yeah. Pence then said, our heart breaks for the loss of any life. I trust our justice system, though. Which is weird because we know that no one was charged for her death at all. Some guy was charged for shooting bullets into the neighboring apartment with white people in it. But all the bullets that hit the black woman, nobody got charged for those, even though they shouldn't have been there. So, yeah, I don't trust the justice system. Uh, Pence said there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd and justice will be served. And then right as that happened, like Twitter was trending with Derek Chauvin just posted $1 million bail, and he's out of jail right now. He's actually walking around right now as a free man, with charges, with posting his $1 million bail. Yeah, justice is not being served. Um, he said there's no excuse for rioters and looters though, because every time they say peaceful protests, he's going to say rioters and looters. She got him riled up. Um, the presumption that America is racist is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. Harris has voted against and filibustered reforms before, which I'll have to fact check, but I believe she's been on both sides of a lot of issues, sometimes because she doesn't think that they're doing enough. Uh, I can see Xenomancer and TP Seeker having a great talk in the chat. Uh, Everybody who's watching this after the fact should pop on over to the chat section and read it. Harris then said that she was the only one on stage with prosecutor experience, and she won't be lectured to about it. And then Trump refused to denounce white supremacy, and Pence basically said, that's fake news. Trump's grandchildren and daughter and son-in-law are Jewish, and when Harris was the DA, it was bad for Californian minorities. Um, so they're basically fighting over who's been worse for minorities, um, and both have points to make. Page's final thing, she tried to get to the final thing, and then Harris was like, "Let me respond," and our agenda will ban chokeholds, and then Susan Page was like, "You already said some of this," and so Harris was like, "Oh, okay, I'll say new stuff. We instituted body cams in California first. We were the first to require training on institutional bias, and it's real, by the way. And then we invested on reentry programs, which a lot of people, that's going to fly over their heads. They're not going to understand, but it was important." Um, then Page wanted to talk about the election. She said, if Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what will you do? And then Harris, like, kind of dodged that question. She's like, we have very broad support, lots of Republicans and generals too, and Everybody, please vote. Vote, vote, vote. If we use our vote and use our voice, we will win and not let Trump subvert democracy. JoeBiden.com, which didn't really uh, answer the question well. And so then Page uh, asked Pence, if Trump refuses to accept the results on a Biden win, what will your role as VP be? And Pence dodged the question too. He said, well, first, I think we're going to win. And I have every confidence that Americans will show up for Trump. And he gave a list of accomplishments and then said the Dems have spent the last 4 years trying to undermine the results of the last election. And there was no obstruction, no collusion. They tried to impeach the president over a phone call, and they've been trying for 4 years to undo the last election. So this is nothing new, and he's basically minimizing the whole impeachment thing. And then he said, "I believe in my heart that Trump will win." That was his answer to the question. And then Susan Page gave a question from a third grader about how are you guys gonna get along, basically. And then Pence said, in America we celebrate free and open expression and exchange in debate, and don't assume that what you see on the news is the American people. And he said that Ginsburg and Scalia and their families were the closest of friends, even though they didn't agree with each other. And then he said, at the end of this debate, we will come together. We will always come together as Americans. And then Harris said, I hear your young words, as if she's talking to that actual third grader. I hear your young words, and I know our future is bright. And Charlottesville propelled Joe to his candidacy because it was in response to all the hatred. Joe Biden has a history of working across the aisle, and our future is bright. And you have the power eventually with your vote. Vote, 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 vote. Everybody vote. She's all about people voting. So, yeah, the end was kind of cheesy. I think Susan Page was putting a little levity in at the end, but let's see. Yep, Xenomancer and TP Seeker are still talking about the coronavirus in the chat. Um, like I said at the beginning of this, I think that Harris won, but it was very close. And overall, the experience was leagues better than what happened with the shit show the week before. And I enjoyed it. I had more to say about it. I've been streaming for an hour now, 58 minutes. And so that's how much better it was because I had so much more to say about this than the last one. I think both candidates did well. Uh, the Fly will probably be the star of the show because a fly landed on Biden's head, but you know what can you do? Uh, yeah. Those were my reactions. Uh, I'm out of steam. I heard that the next one is canceled because Trump won't do it because it's online. So uh, I guess I'll give you my opinions about the town hall. Talk to you guys later.